want to say to everybody, welcome to You Can Do It. My name is Nick Stearns, and I am one of your co-hosts and producers. Quick shout out to our hardworking, dedicated team, Adam Hayes, who's our wonderful co-host and also an award-winning athlete and employee at Special Olympics. And then, of course, Terrell, my other amazing co-host, who's also an award-winning athlete and employee at Special Olympics. And, of course, our wonderful creative consultant, Donna. So welcome tonight, everyone, whether you are a pet owner, someone who loves pets, and pet aunt or uncle, we're glad to have you here. We have a very, very special guest. His name is Dr. Matt Fellrice, and he is from Quince Orchard Veterinary Hospital in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Here's a fun fact, you guys, you're gonna love this. Dr. Fellrice was a Special Olympics volunteer when he was in high school and in college at Northwestern University, and even helped with the games out in Chicago. Let's give a You Can Do It welcome to Dr. Fellrice. Say woo!
Hey guys, how are you? Good. It's great to be a part of this.
Thank you so much for taking time. And we're going to start it off. We're going to have Adam start our conversation tonight. And again, like I said, everybody, remember, since we do have a big group, if you have questions, try to use your chat or the raise the hand button, and we'll do the best job that we can to answer them. So let's kick it off with Adam and his first question. Adam, you got the Zoom square.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming on tonight, Dr. Fellrice.
You're welcome.
I was just wondering, what did you know? When did you know when you wanted to be a vet?
Right. Well, that's a great question, Adam. I would say I first wanted to be a vet when I was 13 years old, if you can believe it. And it's funny because my son, who is now 14 and helping at the veterinary hospital with me, I was telling him just the other day, I was like, I was your age when I wanted to be a vet. And, you know, I stuck with it. You know, your title of this thing is called You Can Do It. And that's exactly what I did. I stuck with it for all these years. I started when I was so young, even in elementary school. I would walk animals. I would do whatever I could just to have that little bit of opportunity to work with animals. And then as I got a little bit older, even in high school, started working with laboratory animals, and I was working at the National Institutes of Health, which is just located in Bethesda here. I was volunteering. I mean, I would work for free. Please take me and teach me. And it's exactly what I was doing. And I got to work with all sorts of lab animals like mice and rats and possums and things like that. And eventually it developed into like monkeys and other animals like pigs and cows that they were doing research on. And then eventually, you know, you go to college and then you go to veterinary school. So, right. I was about 13. I was pretty young.
Wow. That's awesome. And it's so great that you followed your dream.
Right. Yeah. If you guys work hard on it, you can do pretty much whatever you want to.
That's awesome. Adam, do you have another question for Dr. Fellrice?
Yeah. So another thing I was curious about, since we're right now in the middle of the pandemic, does COVID affect all pets? And are mammals different from reptiles and birds when it comes to something like this pandemic happening?
Yeah, very good question. So, you know, I know you guys are very concerned, and it seems like a lot of you guys, from looking at your images, seem to have animals with you or on you or around you, and that's wonderful to see so many of you with animals tonight. So in answer to your question, Adam, yes, COVID can affect mammals. It affects mammals differently than birds and reptiles. We don't believe that COVID typically affects birds and reptiles. They have their own coronavirus species, but they don't seem to be affected with this particular virus that we're worried about right now. As far as our dogs and cats are concerned, I would say cats are more concerning than dogs, but even so, they're very, very low likelihood to actually carry the virus. And the main places that they would get the virus is through us. So if we're being careful, then that means they will be safe. Now, if one of us happens to unfortunately get affected with COVID, the fact of it is it's extremely low for the cat or dog to carry that disease on to another person. Can they get sick? It's definitely possible, but very, very low likelihood that they would get really sick or die from this.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they had some tigers at the New York Zoo that were shown to be sick because one of the caretakers there got the animal sick, and I guess he didn't know he was carrying it. Because remember, most people that are carrying this virus, a lot of people are, when they're shedding active virus, they're not symptomatic, they're not sneezing, they're not feverish, they're walking around like you or I, and we wouldn't know. Okay. Well, unfortunately, this zookeeper probably didn't know. He unfortunately affected some of the cats. Now, none of those big tigers got really, really sick. They all made it, but it was still a concern. And our house cats maybe less so, and dogs even less so than that. They've also shown that hamsters and in particular ferrets can also get this.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Who
And remember,
knew?
we have to consider where this virus came from, right? We know it came from China, but when they isolated it even more so, they actually kind of found that it came from bats. And so, this first came from animals, then went to people, and then between all the people got transmitted, and, less so back to the animals, but, it originally came from bats.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Huh.
I know. Wow. Adam, that was a fantastic question. And I can see a really robust response in the chat. That was just a really great question. And thank you, Dr. Felrice. I learned so much just now. Let's move on to Terrell. I know you want to add to this conversation with Dr. Felrice. Do you have a question for Dr. Felrice?
Yes. Can you check the COVID-19 from animal? Can animal get the COVID-19 like people?
So, if you're walking down the street and you see a dog and happen to pass by it, it's pretty unlikely you're going to get COVID from that animal. But if you get sick with COVID yourself, Terrell, my concern would also be potentially to the animals that you have in the household. Maybe you don't snuggle with them ever as so much as you used to for fear of getting them sick.
Right.
But the worry that I would have there is that more likely you will bring it home to them versus them just catching it being outside. I mean, dogs and cats, they really don't wear masks when they're outside, right?
No,
That would be pretty silly. That would be pretty silly.
Yes, that would be silly.
It would. Hey, T, do you have another question for Dr. Felrice?
Yeah, I do actually. This is the last question. Do animals need different foods to stay healthy now?
Okay,
You
so
got yeah. So do you understand, Doctor?
Right, because I mean, there's no concern right now from the pet food supply that it's been at all problematic in terms of transmission of COVID. So I think most of the pet foods that you're going to buy from the pet store or from your local supermarket are probably safe to feed your dogs. I don't think, and cats, you don't have to go and make your own diet if you're concerned that much. I know, for us, like when we go out to the to get food to take out, I'm always concerned with the bags and who's touched what and where they wear it.
Yeah.
And I can understand the question.
Yeah.
But I think most of the pet foods, because it's processed within a plant and they're packaged there, I don't think there's as much concern about people touching the food.
Okay.
Okay,
right, that's
that makes sense. All right, good. All right, that sounds good.
Very good question, Terrell.
Thank you,
Thank
Terrell.
you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to hold space now, everybody, and open this up with Dr. Fellrice. So if you have your questions, I'm going to ask you a favor to keep it to one question if you could, so we can hold space for as many people as possible. And I'd like to kick off, I believe, Stephanie, you have a question, is that correct?
Can dogs get the virus?
So the answer is yes. They have been able to culture the virus out of dogs' nasal passages. So we know that it's persistent in there. And so they can find the virus inside the dog. That being said, many dogs that have the virus that they can culture it out of, they don't show any symptoms. So from that standpoint, I think there's a low risk for dogs to become really sick from this.
Okay.
So hopefully that gives you a little bit of safety there.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Stephanie. I know we're all
You're welcome.
concerned about the health of our pets during this
Yes.
pandemic.
Right?
Yes.
All right, so let's see. Let's keep going. Jason, who do we have next?
We have Lakiva next. Let me find her for us. Lakiva, you ready?
I do have a question. You said one question, right? My question is it some animal has been taken out of water or not taken taken out of water or it's not enough or it's not enough food
Enough food to feed the animals
and water at the same
and
time.
water?
And water, right.
So, so Lakiva, it sounds like you're wanting to make sure that we want to make sure that we're giving our animals enough food and water. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe Dr. Fellrice can remind us about feeding our animals. It sounds like, and Lakiva, good point. Water is a really important thing too, right, Dr. Fellrice?
Right. I think animals all need a little bit of food and water to survive, and they need a good roof over their heads too to stay nice and warm and dry and get out of this hot sun a little bit. So, you know, the main things for taking care of our dogs and cats that you guys can do at home is making sure that they stay healthy. And part of that, Lakiva, like you mentioned, is to make sure that they're eating well, that they're drinking enough, and that they're acting normally. And if you're finding that your pet is not acting normally or not eating very well or drinking not a lot or maybe too much, that you consider actually bringing your pet into your vet, you know, and having your vet maybe look at your animal and see if you need to run a test or do something else. Very good question. But yeah, food and water is the first things I look at. When an animal's not feeling well, it's the first thing I do is I ask the client, is your dog eating? Is your dog drinking?
Wow, that's great. Lakiva, thank you for reminding us the importance of something like that. I appreciate that. All right, who's up?
Abby, you're up.
I know this sounds like a bit of a silly question, but do dogs and cats have the same symptoms of COVID that humans have? Like, is there a treatment for the animals if they do come down with it? And what is the rate of death for animals that get it?
Right. Very good questions. So in terms of the questions, the death rate, to answer your last question, is very low. I personally have not known of any animals that have died in our area. I'm not going to sit here and say I know of what every hospital is doing, but it's extremely very low. So that's a good thing. Do they share the same symptoms? They do. Remember, our symptoms are so varied, and even in the human world, we're still learning about all the different things that COVID can do. And even now, that even if it's been out for 8 months now, that we're still learning about the disease in humans. And so as far as animals go, I would say a lot of the same typical signs that you would expect to find. A lot of the fevers and sneezing and coughing potentially are the things that I would worry about with dogs and cats. But also, not like Lakiva was asking, maybe not eating as well or drinking as much, or maybe they're less active. Signs like that.
Wow, that was great, Abby. Thank you. That was a really good question.
And is there a treatment?
Oh, right. So right now there is no specific treatment for animals. And to be quite honest, they really don't even know how to treat the humans very well either. They're starting to learn a little bit more about some of the different drugs that are out there to try to help. I think really the answer is going to lie in a vaccine where we can prevent this disease. It's interesting that, dogs have their own coronaviruses, and cats, they've had their own coronaviruses for a long time. Those coronaviruses don't affect us. They stay with their own species. They don't even, the cat one doesn't even go to the dogs. The cat's one just stays amongst the cats. And so there's a disease in cats called FIP, called feline infectious peritonitis. It causes a lot of severe symptoms in cats. And a lot of times, unfortunately, cats can die from this. But even so, there are some of the same medicines that we use for these cats to fight that disease that we're now using in people. And it's interesting to me because when they discovered this disease in the people, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if they're trying that FIP treatment that we used in cats and applying to people. And sure enough, they are, and it's working.
Wow.
Right. So we learn from our feline patients. Right. Yeah.
Wow. That's very interesting. All right. I think, Danny, do you have Jason, is Danny up?
I have Derek, Elena, and then Danny. So.
Okay. Derek, Elena, then Danny. So Derek, you got the Zoom square.
So how can you tell when your animal has the virus? Is there a way that you can tell?
Right. So as we discussed, I think the things that you're going to be looking out for your animal, number one, I would say the main thing is, remember, they're likely going to get it from us.
Right.
So if you happen to be sick, you should be on the lookout and saying, I hope I don't get my cat sick or my dog sick. And the things that you're going to be looking out for them are going to be the same things that your doctor is going to be looking out for you. Do you have a fever? Do you have sneezing? Do you have nasal discharge? Are you coughing? And all of those same things are going to be the same thing for the animals. And that's what you need to be looking for your animals if they happen to get sick. But the primary way for you to help them is to help yourself, right? Make sure that you wear a mask out in public. Make sure that you're protecting yourself. Make sure you wash your hands quite frequently. And you can do all those things. And if you're doing all those things and you wash your hands right when you get home, your cat or your dog are going to be very unlikely to pick up anything. Because remember, it's not like they're outside, finding new animals or other new owners to other people to play with. They're going to be relying on you to keep them safe.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. That's a great point. Thank you. Elena, you are up. You have the Zoom square.
Hi. So we recently adopted a puppy before the whole pandemic thing started. What are some ways, because from an early age, socialization with the dog is key. And we always try to take her to a dog park when weather's nice, and we always bring her own collapsible water bowl, and we always make sure we wash it out each time we get home. Right. What are some ways of how we can still socialize Pippa, but we're also, that we're keeping her safe and us safe? Because we also have an older dog.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a very intuitive point. And I wish I have, some great words of advice for you. What I would say is what I'm telling my clients about their animals, about dog parks, is that, whereas it's very unlikely that a dog-to-dog transmission is going to occur, it can occur. right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the feeling is I am discouraging right now a lot of the dog to dog interactions. I would say the safer things to do is if you have people that have their dogs and you know they've been safe and you can practice safety with them, that would be at least a safer thing than the stranger that you don't know or their dog at the dog park. The same thing happens with daycare, and the same thing a little bit even with groomers, to be quite honest. All of these places, they can pick things up. But remember, it's very unlikely that it's going to stay on their fur for any long period of time. It's going to likely require a direct transmission from dog to dog in order for them to get sick. So as long as you're practicing these safety things, I would say in the meantime, I'd probably keep the social interactions more to a minimum, just to make sure that we
because there's only
avoid
one
having
other
problems.
dog she interacts with.
Then I know if you know that owner and you're comfortable
I
with
do.
them, then I would say, you know, that's the dog that she should be playing with. She probably shouldn't be playing with new dogs she doesn't know at this point. Keep everyone safe.
Wow, thank you. Elena, that was a really important question for us to hear. So thank you for asking that. Okay, Jason, I think we have time for one more question, and I know Adam and Sherelle have a couple of things they want to ask as well. Who do we have next?
We'll go to Melissa.
Melissa, you're up in the Zoom square.
How many years you been a vet?
Oh, how many years have I been a vet? I
That's what I
graduated
was gonna ask you.
Right, I graduated from veterinary school in 2003. So I've been a vet for
Ooh.
about 17 years, yeah.
Yeah, how can you tell if dogs and cats are allergic to food or ice cream with peanut butter in it?
Well, fortunately, they tend not to have the amount of peanut allergies that we do. I would say, you know, for the most part, you know, if your animal is allergic to a certain food, you might note that they're licking themselves. You might find that they have vomiting or diarrhea. You might find that they develop rashes on their skin or even like things like ear infections. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say animals are specifically allergic to peanuts like we happen to be.
3-year-old puppy.
Right, but more often the animals are going to be allergic to the proteins in the diet, like the chicken or the beef or the lamb, those types of things.
Okay.
Very good question.
Yeah, Melissa, thank you. That's a very interesting question. You guys, I'm going to turn it back over. I know Adam wants to ask something that is really important moving forward as we begin to go to the vet if we have to. So Adam, I'm going to throw it back to you. Can you take over the Zoom square?
Absolutely. My last question here is, how would a visit to your clinic look like today, and what are the safety precautions you have started?
Right. Very, very good questions. Yeah, so I think a lot of the veterinary hospital area have gone to doing this curbside service, as you would, where you pull up in your car, you call the office and say, hey, I'm here. We come out to your car. We bring the animal in from your car into the hospital. We are trying to limit, if not have zero clients in our hospital at this point, because we don't want the spread of the virus, and we want everyone's going to be wearing a mask anyways. We bring the animal in, we examine the animal in the hospital. I then come back out to the car and discuss the findings with the owner, and then we decide kind of what we want to do. I think this way we're limiting the amount of exposure. Yes, your animal is exposed to me and potentially my staff, but I'm wearing a mask and I'm washing my hands after every client. And so I'm making sure that I'm doing what I can to make sure that your animal stays safe. Yeah, and if you can tell, I have a nice suntan. So going outside to all these cars, it's giving me a little bit of a workout. It's kind of nice when it's not so hot, but it's kind of brutal when it is.
Wow.
Yes. And you guys, I can tell you that Dr. Fellrice is our family veterinarian, as I had mentioned earlier. And yes, sometimes it's very warm because we had to take Ace last week on a super hot day.
Yeah.
So thank you, and thank you everybody at the hospital for having to do that.
You're welcome.
Hey T, I'd like to turn it over to you. I know that you have another question for Dr. Fellrice. Can you share that?
Do your pets, animals, can get do they, well, if they get COVID-19, or do they have to stay in a room like people?
Oh,
Yeah,
like
so-
quarantine.
Yeah. So the answer is yes.
Yeah, quarantine.
Wow.
Yeah, the answer is yes. I mean, they theoretically, we would, for cats, hopefully they can just be kept indoors in quarantine. It's not so hard for them. Yes, if a dog is positive, you should make every opportunity to not have your dog around other dogs or other people. So yes, you should home isolate them if possible. Obviously, they got to do their business outside, right? So we're understanding of that.
Yeah.
But you can still practice safety even if they're positive.
Wow, Terrell, that was a really great
All right.
question. I didn't even think about that. So
Yeah.
I'd like to ask the last question tonight. Dr. Felrice, what is the best thing about being a veterinarian? Can you share that with our You Can Do It audience?
Wow, yeah, that's a tough question. I think my favorite thing about being a veterinarian, and it's again the reason why I became a veterinarian, is obviously to help animals, right? But it's not just that. It's they're members of our family, right? And I treat every animal as such as it is, someone's son or daughter, and want to make sure that they get the right veterinary care. And the best part of my job is to see that we're actually helping these animals recover, get better. And and unfortunately, even with some of the animals that don't do well, we're helping them transition at their end of life and making this as painless for them as possible. So it really is about helping animals, helping their owners, helping everyone together kind of form that human-animal bond and nurturing that. Because, I mean, they're there for us. They give us unconditional love. And, we have to make sure, and I have to make sure that we're giving the best care that we can in helping all of the animals. And, and someone had asked a question on the chat screen I see there, what do you do about animals at the end of life when it's time to say goodbye? Can they come into the hospital? And the answer is really, we're doing most things outside. It's very nice on our grounds. We have a lot of grass area. It's very, very calm and very serene. And I think it's very, very nice for owners to be outside with their animals at the end. But yeah, it's different. It's not an easy way to work to do these things outside. Maybe there's people looking at us, but it is what it is. We have to be safe first.
Yeah.
Right.
That was great. Thank you for that. And I think for everybody on the call tonight, it's so obvious how much all of you guys love your pets or love your friends' pets. And I think during, this pandemic, their support and their love, the love of our animals is just so wonderful. But I think Dr. Felrice gave us a lot of things to think about how to be the best caregivers to our animals. So can we give a warm, wonderful, You Can Do It thank you to Dr. Matt Felrice, former volunteer at Special Olympics.
Yep.
And remember, you guys, he's at the Quince Orchard Veterinary Hospital in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And like he said earlier, let's do everything we can to take care of ourselves, to be safe, and to take care of all of our animals as best we can. So Dr. Felrice, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Very great questions. I had a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And Terrell, can you lead us out?
Come back in 2 weeks. We will be here on Zoom. You can do it. Come, be there or be square. Bye, everyone.
And
Well,
Adam,
guys,
do you want to lead us out?
and guys, remember, stay positive. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Stay positive.
Safe.
Be well, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks when we talk about friendship and reaching out to our friends and how important that is in our lives. And again, thank you to Dr. Felrice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be well.